and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. Today, I have a wonderful lady joining us, Paloma Hatami. She is the founder of Mygene. And through her personal story, which she is going to share with us, I won't dive straight into it, it has led her to what she is doing today. I could probably spend the hours speaking about how this person has given me a roadmap for my own body and helped me lose weight and step into a new version of myself in terms of my well-being. Enough said. Paloma, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That's very kind of you. And thanks for the kind introduction. You did most of the work yourself, Tracy. We just provided you with some information and you just ran with it, and it's all your own work. So
thanks, Paloma. It's probably the first time in my life where I've actually had a set of tools that I could actually use to lose weight and to also have a better understanding of how my body works as well. Because I have not weighed this, and I'm not exaggerating, since I was 12 years old, and I just feel so good as well. So thank you so much. Enough about me. I would love to, if you're comfortable, share how you landed up doing what you're doing.
Yes, of course. So I used to be a corporate lawyer, and about 15 years ago, I developed a brain tumor. So, and the symptoms were effectively hearing loss. And I kept running because I'm a runner. So I kept running sideways and wasn't sure why I kept running sideways. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I went to the doctor a few times. They thought that I had a flu and had some inner ear infection, but I didn't have an inner ear infection, so they sent me to get MRIs, and they diagnosed this particular tumor, which sits on a group of nerves, including the hearing, swallowing, facial nerve, as well as your balance nerve. So it's in a precarious position, and even though it's not malignant, it can have quite dramatic repercussions for a person's health. For example, permanent facial paralysis. Once it gets bigger, it can actually stop you from swallowing or breathing. So sometimes it doesn't grow, but mine unfortunately was growing because it's part of your body. Tumors are effectively your own cells that stop listening to the instructions in the cell. So it's same as cancer. It's a form of cancer. Tumors are effectively a form of cancer, except they're not malignant. So they just keep growing and growing and growing, rather than having the instruction where after a number of different about approximately 50 cell divisions, they should stop actually growing. So through that journey, I decided that I was quite young. I was, I don't know, 32 or 33 years old or something like that, and I wanted to do it all naturally. So I went and started on the process of going to all these clinics and getting all sorts of natural remedies, acupuncture, deep tissue therapy, seeing naturopaths, going to clinics overseas where they did chelation and they did IVs and all sorts of different things, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of supplements and
can imagine
tinctures and all of that. And all the promises, after a year, I had to get another MRI, as I do yearly, and the tumor had doubled in that time, and it's meant to be a slow-growing tumor.
Wow.
So I was so distraught and I realized that even though allied health has its place, I needed to be evidence-based. I needed to look at the evidence and look at what actually can help with these particular types of tumors. So then I started looking into the science behind it. And at the time, the most common way of dealing with this was surgery. And surgery has a lot of repercussions, including you can obviously have a lot of issues afterwards, not being able to walk because of the balance, not being able to having facial paralysis for quite some time, not to mention the downside. And it's quite a long surgery. It's around 12-hour surgery. So being under general for that long. And at the time, there was a new procedure, which was targeted radiotherapy. So I went down that route of targeted radiotherapy, but I did my own research. I went and saw all the surgeons and the radiologists. So I saw 3 or 4 different groups. I collated the information. I looked at the evidence, the pros and cons, and I remember writing it all down. And then I decided to go down the radiation route, which at the time was very controversial for someone as young as I was for that particular tumor. So that was kind of how I started in this space, looking at how to target something in a way that was evidence-based. And I was very much sold on the whole targeting things naturally, which I still am in a lot of ways, but there's certain things that you need to look at the evidence behind it. If there are no scientific papers that are validated and backed, then you are effectively going with guesswork and people's experiences and anecdotes, and no two people are the same.
No, 100%. Paloma, I just want to back up. What goes through your mind when you get news like that? I mean, you have it happening to someone else and you think, oh my gosh, we just carry on in life and think it's never going to happen. What were the key tools that you used when you heard that news? I mean, that is just absolutely like, you almost hit a wall in life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I still get a bit emotional about it, but so imagine I was actually, I remember I would have been about 32 years old.
So young.
And I was the top of top of the world. You're in terms of your health and well-being, and professionally I was doing really well. And all of a sudden, the surgeon who told me the news didn't have a very good bedside manners, and he told me that effectively you've got this, and I was completely unprepared for it.
As one would be.
How the hell did I have
anyone be
prepared? How did I have a brain tumor? And he said, and by the way, you'll probably have permanent facial paralysis on one side of your face, and there is absolutely no surgery that can fix it. So you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. And of course, I remember coming out of the hospital and just sobbing in my car for like
I would have done the same,
because I thought, how am I going to tell my mom? My mom is going to be devastated. So anyway, it was a pretty traumatic experience, and the delivery was terrible as well. So insensitive.
Yeah,
it was quite insensitive, but then it just took me on this journey. So I tried for it was a couple of years of trying so many different things, and then realizing that, if you don't have the right information in front of you, you are just wasting your time, you're wasting your money, and it's all false hope. And so many of these allied health professionals, unfortunately, gave me false hope. Oh, yes, we can help you. We've done this before. We've shrunk the tumor before. And unfortunately, not in my case. It didn't happen.
Well, and what were the next steps, Paloma? So you got the news, try to do things naturally. What did you do after that?
So I went and saw 3 groups of surgeons. So I went and got all the information, and I knew that what needed to be done. It had to be surgery. This new field, as I said, had just come out with targeted radiotherapy. So then I went to see what was the best type of radiotherapy for this particular tumor. I contacted all the best neurosurgeons around Australia, including Dr. Charlie Teo, who's an incredible, he was at top of his field at the time, in keyhole surgery. And then I took all the information, as I said, and I made a kind of spreadsheet about all the information, all the positives and negatives, all the unknowns. And then based on that, I made the decision to go down the radiotherapy route, which now they know that is the best route to take if you're young, because they can't take the whole tumor out. Because if they do, then you've got major problems, because those nerves, the bundle of nerves, gets severely damaged.
So after you got the news, you went down the radio therapy route, and then how was Mygene born? How did that happen?
So Mygene, I met my partner 13 years ago, and he is a molecular biologist, and he had originally founded a number of different companies, biotech companies, including a company that originally was also called Mygene, which was the first direct consumer genetic testing company. And for various different reasons, there were shareholder disputes, etc. And it kind of nothing to do with him, but it effectively went into voluntary administration. So he then set up a genetics lab where he did contract lab for a lot of other genetic testing companies, because most genetic testing companies, including the largest like 23andMe, they don't actually have their own laboratory. They subcontract it out. So therefore you require a laboratory to be able to process the samples and of course provide either raw genetic data back to the people, and then they can interpret it, or help with the interpretation of it, as well as he did a lot of advisory work for companies who are making claims about genetics to make sure that they are making the right types of claims and they're not misleading people.
Yeah, because there's so much of that around as well.
There's a lot of that, and also the call rates. So you know how when we did your genetic test, there's different genotypes. So there could be AA, AT, and TT, for example.
Yes, I remember.
And the TT and the AA are completely different. So one is, for example, they hold on to for weight loss purposes. That's a very one of the strongest evidences on this particular gene called the FTO gene. So if you have the AA version of that gene, you hold on to calories a lot more, and you don't really expend it through physical activity. So this was a protective gene, because up to 150 years ago, we used to go through periods of famine and feast. In fact, I would say 80 years ago, even 60 years ago, we used to go through periods of famine and feast.
Not even that long ago.
World War II, even in Australia, there were times that everything was very, very tight around Second World War. First World War, the same. So the core and the TT is it's the new mutation where people can shed weight easily. Once they eat something, they're satisfied. They don't have cravings for food. Very, very different genotypes. So some of the companies were reporting this backwards, which is terrible, because you can imagine you've got totally different genotypes, and they're actually making the call backwards. So there's a lot of that goes on, unfortunately, in this space. And so that's where Mygene was born, where we started looking at programming a software. This is about 8 years ago, which helped to collate all the information to be able to make a claim. So, for example, you're looking at dozens of papers relating to a particular gene and how it affects a trait. Yes. To look at the actual paper to make sure that there's evidence behind the paper, because, as you know, scientific papers have very different in terms of the how evidence-based they are. You're looking at meta-analysis, for example, as let's say a top tier. Then you've got randomized double-blind control studies, randomized triple-blind control studies. Then you have, Mendelian randomized control studies. So there's a whole heap, and they're demarcated according to how high the evidence is. So then looking at those, and then reporting on even the references, because some of the references, believe it or not, when we look at the references within the paper, they don't back the paper. They're against what the paper says. So it's terrible, right? So we needed to be able to do that rather than take weeks to do that, because you can imagine you got to get the papers, find the right papers, print it all out, sit there with a highlighter, highlight all the relevant sections, look at the references. So we started putting together an AI-driven program about 9 years ago, before AI was AI.
Oh, wow.
And then we started feeding it all the various scientific databases. And so today we have this incredibly robust artificial intelligence. We call her Mygene, and she has about 100 million bits of information and peer-reviewed papers at her disposal. We've received APIs for a number of different high-level AIs, including we're a handful of companies in the world. We're one of them that got the Stanford medical API to feed into our Mygene.
Wow.
And so our program is extremely robust now, because rather than us interpreting your genetic data, which can be flawed and it could only relate to 3 or 4 papers or 10 papers, we're relying now on a massive database, and the information we're getting is just mind-boggling. We're quite amazed ourselves every time we log into someone's account. It's actually evolved, Tracy, since we did yours.
I was just going to say, I mean, I've seen it and I was just totally blown away. It was, you had my, and perhaps you'd like to walk us through this, Paloma. I had my diagram there, and every time you clicked on the specific component, it would give you all these medical articles that you could read. And it just gives you a completely better understanding of yourself, because I think, like with a lot of Western medicine, yeah, you've got your symptoms and they give you whatever, and they don't really take a deeper dive into actually why certain things are happening. And I know I had an incident, and you went back to my gene reading and really helped and guided me, whereas if you hadn't, it probably could have been quite not such a great outcome as well. So maybe for our listeners, did you want to walk us through the process that you took me on with the saliva swab, and then how you guys kind of took me on that journey?
Yes, of course. So effectively, a genetic test, we use a buccal swab, which is basically you put it in the inner cheek, and we get some DNA from the soft part of your cheek. We use a particular swab, which is the best swab in the world, is made in Italy. So it's got an inbuilt desiccant. And then you basically send that back to us. We extract the DNA and then get it analyzed at a NATA accredited laboratory, which is the highest standard for a lab. So Australia has these particular certification. Australia's manufacturing as well as laboratory services are some of the best in the world, because they're very, very robust. And it's very hard to get these certifications. So we effectively, after that, we get the raw data. So we look at about 645,000 single nucleotide polymorphisms. And then, of course, all of those don't have scientific validity, because we still don't know how a lot of those particular SNPs work. We don't know what they relate to. So we're finding this out all the time, because it's a very, very dynamic, evolving area. And that's why things have to be updated daily. Often there is scientific discoveries daily, and that's where the program comes in.
Right.
So then we take that information, we'll look at the evidence, or we don't look at the evidence. Now the program goes through all the evidence and then spits out 23 functional categories from your aging panel. So what happens when you age, what genes are affected, and what that means for you, all the way to your sports panel, weight management, hormone. For females, it's female hormone. For male is male hormone. Your food sensitivities, all of these things are genetically determined, as well as your cognitive panel. So the cognitive panel is a very, very robust panel that can give your susceptibility to depression, anxiety, learning, as well as ADHD, aggression, etc. Actually, as well as addiction risk. The interesting part of that is, what do you do with that information, right? So let's say you find out you've got high ADHD and you've got addiction risk as well as anxieties. So the program also canvasses all of these millions of papers and comes up with interventions for your genotype. So, for example, we know that aerobic exercise is one of the most effective and long-lasting interventions for things like depression and anxiety. And there's so many papers published on that. So then people ask us what type of exercise, and that's again personalized. We look at their, whether they have more slow twitch or fast twitch muscle fiber. So whether they should be doing more endurance or more power and speed types of exercises, what their repair is like, how their soft tissue repair is like, what is their lactate threshold. So all of those things then make it a lot more precise, rather than saying, oh, go and do 3 sessions of weight-bearing exercises and go for runs every day. We can target it a lot better. Same with food sensitivity, same with all of the various different things we'll look at. So effectively what we're trying to do is we put your body into balance. We bring your body, the environment and the genes, we try to match them as closely as we can, rather than having a mismatch, because most of the diseases that we have today are a result of a mismatch between our environment and our genes.
Yeah.
Because we haven't evolved to be sitting down all day. We haven't evolved to be sitting indoors all day. We haven't evolved to be looking at a screen all day.
Yes.
We haven't evolved to be eating these weird, new genetically modified foods with different proteins. All the chemicals in the environment, our bodies are just not used to them. And mutations take about 10,000 years. So like a really interesting thing about mismatch diseases and mismatch physiology is your wisdom teeth, for example.
Yeah.
So we evolved up to 10,000 years ago. We ate close to 100 grams of fiber a day, and everything was very, very hard. So the lettuce was not like lettuce; it was more like kale.
Yes.
There was a lot of tuber vegetables and stuff that we used to really sit there and chew on. And so our jaws used to be bigger, and therefore they accommodated for the extra teeth that we have in our skull. In today's age, where everything is soft foods, of course, those create problems. Interestingly, I was speaking to an orthopedic surgeon yesterday, and she said that a lot of the new generation don't have wisdom teeth.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah. She said not at all, which is really interesting. I was actually astounded, and I thought, well, it makes sense. It takes 10,000 years for mutations to occur on average. And we've been having advent of agriculture was 10,000 years ago, and domestication of plants and animals was 10,000 years ago. We were all of a sudden sedentary, sitting, or we're not really sitting, but we were living in one area rather than be nomads and be moving around, because we used to all be nomadic. We used to move around. We used to have a variety of different plants and animal matter, because we went from place to place as it got cooler. We went to warmer places that it got, and kept moving around. So we never lived in our own filth, because, of course, campaments of humans, it created a lot of filth. We didn't have as many children, because we couldn't have as many children because we were constantly moving, and we didn't have enough food because we had to forage for quite some time to get the food. So after the advent of agriculture, or I should say not agriculture, but domestication of plants and animals, all of a sudden we started sticking around the same area, planting plants, domesticating animals. And of course, that created its own problems, because we had a lot of food, but we could also starve to death if there was a bad season, whereas hunter-gatherers didn't really starve to death because they just kept moving.
Yeah.
The other issue was diseases. We used to move around, and there was never enough time for filth to grow and all our byproducts to be accumulating and making us sick in the water or around the campament area. All of a sudden, in agriculture, once we started domesticating animals, the filth started gathering, and we started getting more diseases as a result of the pathogens. And also living in close proximity with animals, we got zoonotic types of diseases, where all of a sudden the animals are stressed and not used to what is happening to them, and the stress is creating lower immune function, and therefore these bacteria and viruses that live on us and in the animals affect them in the balance shifts, which is what happens to us, and then also infects us. So all of these issues, including problems with our backs, including cavities. So when they look at the skeletons of, hunter-gatherers going back more than 10,000 years ago, they didn't really have cavities. They didn't have back problems. They didn't have osteoarthritis and osteoporosis. They didn't have insulin resistance or diabetes. They didn't have obesity and all of these diseases that we have today, or cardiovascular disease and heart disease. All of these are mismatched diseases between our environment and our genetics, because our genetics are still in the hunter-gatherer phase, right?
Yeah. And I guess, is that because they were always on the move and they were constantly active?
They're not just constantly active. Because they moved from area to area, there was different things to forage on. So they had, rather than us, where it's lucky if a person that can have 30 or 40 different types of fruits and vegetables a week, they would have hundreds of different types of grains and seeds and nuts and tubers and things that they will forage from area to area. Different animals that they used to hunt, right? Depending on where it was. So that's one of the issues. The other issue is as I said, the filth, the movement, living in a confined space, having too many children. They used to not have that many children, as I said, because of the nomadic, as well as they didn't have enough food.
Yeah.
Just having too much food, that's a big problem. Most of our issues now with obesity and insulin resistance in first world countries is an abundance of food with very little nutritional value, right? So when you pluck a ripe fruit from a tree, it's got so many minerals and nutrients and goodness in it. We are consuming that, and we're getting all of those incredible kind of minerals and nutrients and life, I guess, in that fruit or vegetable. Whereas when we go to the supermarket, most supermarket produce is sitting in a cold room for 6 months or shipped from another country. By the time you get the fruit, all that's left of it effectively is sugar.
Yeah.
Fructose. All the goodness, the mineral and the vitamin content, you'd be lucky to get a fraction of that. On top of that, just the way we grow these things, they just don't have the same nutritional value that something that's been stressed in the wild has. It's full of antioxidant. Every time a worm or a butterfly or some sort of an insect bites on a plant, the plant emits these toxins that are actually create. They're like even though they're poisonous for the little worm, they create these strong antioxidants in the actual plant. So when we're consuming organic plants, not the organic that is putting, the mass produced organic, proper organic, you should be getting all the leaves being a little bit stressed and butterflies and little organisms eating it. That's what we want to see, because that creates the types of the content, the antioxidant content that is ideal for our bodies. But of course, when was the last time you found a little worm or something on your food?
Not recently. Maybe on my kale a little while ago, but that's about it.
And people freak out. They look at worms and they go, "Oh my God, it's so disgusting."
Yes, I was like, oh, yeah, not a fan.
Take that worm and that worm has created a much more nutritious plant for you to consume. So rather than freaking out and trying to ward off all these little creatures, we should be thanking them for changing the nutritional content of our food.
And what they're actually doing. And Paloma, I love the way you explain things. So I think there's such a lack of education around what we eat, and marketing does play a big role in, most of the aisles in the supermarkets. I think you might have mentioned this, it's everything is sugar-based, whatever's in the middle, and you literally have to stick to the outer side, which is all your vegetables, your meat and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
I really love how you explain it. So we actually have a better understanding. And I think this is what I've loved about working with you, is that I just have a better education, understanding of what it is that I'm actually putting into my body, and why, when I've tried all these other diet fads and goodness knows what else, well, it hasn't worked. You really opened up my eyes to having the tools to actually lose the weight, or to to just for general well-being as well, to just feel better. Like I don't get that 3 p.m. dip anymore as well. I know you recommended intermittent fasting to us. Do you mind to walk us through what that is for our listeners, please?
Yes, of course. So it's actually more time-restricted feeding that we advocate rather than intermittent fasting. So it depends on what your goal is. So again, I go back to evolutionary biology. Without evolutionary biology, genetics is meaningless, because we've evolved a certain way for a certain reason. Just because it's not apparent today and those genes are suboptimal for us doesn't mean there was a reason behind these genes evolving. Most genes, not all, of course. Effectively, going back to what we should be eating and why we should be doing time-restricted feeding. If you're a young person and you're growing, you need as much nutrients as possible. Michael Pollan has described it very well in a sentence. He says, eat whole foods, mainly plants, not too much.
Yeah.
So by whole foods, we mean when you're looking at the food, you understand that's an apple, that's a whole food, whereas apple puree or some sort of apple sauce sitting on the shelf and you look at the ingredients and they've got all sorts of additives and preservatives and sugar, and to be able to keep it on the shelf and increase the shelf life, that is not food. That is just sugar, effectively, and chemicals. So whole food means you look at it and you know it's lettuce or kale or carrots or fish or whatever. You actually can see it and it's whole food. Mainly plants, because most of our evolution, we have evolved to be eating foraging for a huge number of plants, seeds, tubers, etc. And yes, we hunted as well. But when we hunted, that animal was a very different beast to what the animals are today. Those animals had a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to 6. These days, the animals are so stressed. The way the industrial farming happens, even if it says grass-fed, it may be grass-fed, but 3 weeks before slaughtering the animal, they put it in feeding lots and they give it all sorts of things to fatten it up. Not to mention antibiotics. They feed lots of antibiotics to be able to make it grow faster. And the diseases they get from being stressed and being in more confined spaces, they have to give them these antibiotics because they're constantly in a state of chronic disease or inflammation. And so very different animal and beast. Because we get this all the time. Oh, hunter-gatherers ate meat all the time. That the same meat, go out there and hunt your own animal, sure, a wild animal, but if you're going in a supermarket and picking up meat, that's just not the same thing. It's
very
completely
different.
So because of those things, and because we have such an ample amount of nutrients available to us, and dense nutrients as well, once you get past that growth phase, it's ideal for your gut health and as well as increased longevity, because multiple studies have been done on all organisms, including mammals and humans, showing that eating between an 8 to 10 hour window increases a person's lifespan, health span and lifespan. So that is time-restricted feeding. If you are past a certain age, we recommend you try to eat within an 8-hour window. If you're trying to lose weight, we also recommend, depending on your age, between a 6 to 8 hour window, but 8 to 10 hours is what the studies suggest. So if you're, for example, 10 kilos overweight, it's better if you stick it to an 8-hour window, for example, because in that 8-hour window, you'll be eating less. Also, one thing, when we wake up and before we go to bed, ideally, you want to leave about a 3-hour gap before you're eating anything. I mean, coffee and tea, black coffee and tea with maybe a little bit of, milk is fine.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't really break your fast. But you want to keep those free because some people have a particular genotype where melatonin is still circulating in your bloodstream. Melatonin helps put you to sleep.
Yes.
But that also makes you insulin resistant. So effectively, anything you eat during that period can be immediately converted to fat in your body, or not immediately, but it will get converted to fat if you're not burning it off.
Right.
So also in the morning, most people are not hungry. That's why you find children that are not really hungry in the morning, and we force feed them with the worst type of things, which is cereal and fruit juice,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
Which are laden with sugars and refined carbohydrates, rather than making it a more natural process where the child, once it's hungry, gets given a lunchbox with, the right types of food, rather than these types of refined sugars and so on that can cause symptoms like ADHD. And unfortunately, that becomes chronic. And then the child gets put on, for example, medication or something like that. So the intermittent fasting is a different thing, and it's quite valid, and a lot of people like it, and it makes them lose weight. But we believe in food hygiene, sleep hygiene, and exercise hygiene.
Yes.
Because your body as an organism needs to have consistency. If you're eating one day at this time, another day at this time, your body doesn't know, it gets confused. So if you're eating it around the same time every day, your body anticipates that and starts producing gastric juices in anticipation of you eating.
Yeah.
Giving it different windows of time, it constantly is doing that because it's confused. And also that period, also you become insulin resistant because you want to be able to produce the gastric juices, eat the food, and be able to utilize the food. So you need to be very careful and have that consistency. Intermittent fasting gives you, I think, a couple of days where you have very little calories, and the rest of it is you eat normally. And so that is outside of what we consider food hygiene, you see?
Yeah, because it's sort of not cohesive, right?
That's right. So it's like going to bed one night at 10 and one night at 12, and the next night at 1, and then next night. So you actually, if you do that, effectively gives you jet lag. That actually gives jet lag. So it's the same thing for the body, because your body's not used to it. One day it's eating at this time, another time is eating less, another day it's eating a little bit more. So we don't really like to advocate that, because it's also harder for people to follow. It's very hard to have 500 calories in a day. It's very, very difficult. Whereas it's easier if you get consistency and you allow your blood sugars to normalize and your body get used to eating within a particular time period. I think that seems to be producing excellent results, long-term results for our clients, rather than these fad diets. And
yes,
I'm going to do intermittent fasting for 3 months to lose weight so that I can get into my wedding dress or something.
Yes, I have actually heard stuff like that before. So
it's not really healthy. I mean, it's fantastic that they want to do that and lose weight, but long term, you want to have something that is sustainable and works for your genotype as well as works for you as a person. So depending on what your chronotype is, your morning or afternoon, evening person, we kind of personalize it to what it works for each person.
Yes. And Paloma, what's your viewpoint on, I know there's a lot of discussion on various podcasts around fasting for 24 hours and longer periods. Would you recommend something like that, or?
Again, that is a case-to-case basis. So it depends on why the person wants to do it. There's a lot of advantages to fasting for those 24-hour, 48-hour, 3-day fasting, etc. There's a lot of benefits. It allows the body to go into a state where the body goes into a starvation mode, and it starts eating parts of the body, or the senescent cells, the cells that are effectively stop dividing, but they're still alive, and they're taking lots of resources from the body, and they're emitting signals of distress. So the body is constantly thinking there's something going on immunologically, and it creates this incredible inflammation in the body, and that happens as we age as well. So if a person's in a constant state of inflammation, they've got some health issues, they've got some gut issues. Definitely we will recommend something like that, but we first want to get them in a state where their body's in balance. They can eat within the particular hours, like 8 or 10 hours or whatever it is that is ideal for them. And then when that starts working, you start losing weight, your body kind of goes down in inflammation, you're more used to it, then you go into these more extreme types of fasting. There's no point in doing this type of fast and then going back and starting to eat McDonald's the 24
yes, no.
right? Because you're then really stuffing up your metabolism as well. Your body's going into a state of starvation, and then anything comes in, it's going to hold on to it, and then you're feeding it something horrible. And of course, you're going to have adverse effects to that. So why are you doing it? In some cultures it's spiritual, or it's a religious reason, and every culture has it. So there's definitely a lot of validity to those types of fasting. But taking this and commercializing it like everything else, like yoga, let's make it as fast as possible, let's make these 24-hour fast trendy,
yes, which is happening.
It's meaningless and nonsensical in my opinion. There has to be a valid reason for you to do it, and also it can have adverse effects on your blood glucose levels, etc. So it's got to be done in an environment where you're supported.
Yes,
have the tools to be able to do it right. Otherwise it becomes another fad thing, and you say, I've tried it and it just didn't work, or whatever the results are.
Yes. And I think another thing which I learned from working with you is that even just like small little changes, like I learned that I was lactose intolerant, so I changed to almond milk, and I was one of those who was very inflamed. I didn't even realize. And just making those small changes, and just, you start realizing you feel so much better. I am proud to say I no longer eat McDonald's or Hungry Jack's or any of that. It's once I got my values sorted, worked with you, it just really makes you more conscious of what it is that you're putting in your mouth, and making those more healthier decisions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's really important. I mean, we're not it's important to work within people's parameters. So if a person's been eating 3 meals of McDonald's a day, even cutting it one meal out is good. It's a positive step forward. So but it's important to not waste the person's time and money if they're not going to want to follow up on a program that is going to help them. Yes. If they're having it for information only, that's all good and well, but it's important for everybody and their long-term health to want to do this for the right reasons rather than short-term goals, which they're not geared for that. And that's why you may lose weight, but we don't advocate weight loss. We say we want to balance your body. Yes. And in terms of the chronic inflammation, it's like if you as a person are, let's say, a car, and you've got a premium petrol engine, putting lactose in a lactose intolerant person past the age of 3 is like putting little bits of gasoline in the engine. Yeah. Right? It may not immediately show the create engine failure, right? But it's just not going to be optimally driving. And as that accumulates, at one point, it's going to give in, right? Yes. So it's important to know your genetic susceptibility to specific types of food. 70% of the human population are lactose intolerant past the age of 3. 70%.
Yeah.
And the people who do have the enzyme to break down lactose, that's a new mutation that has occurred in the last 10,000 years. For populations that lived close to livestock and subsisted on having their milk to be able to, as part of their diet, as a long-term basis. So we find that in some Northern Europeans, mainly Northern Europeans, parts of Northern Europe, where they lived with cows, and they kind of worked with livestock, but bear in mind, commercially produced milk is again not really milk.
No.
It's full of antibiotics because the animals get mastitis because of the machines that are constantly sucking the milk from their bodies. And so they get chronic injuries around their breasts. And there's actually a Australian code for the amount of pus that's allowed to be in commercial milk.
Wow.
So bear that in mind. So there are companies like Baramba, which are organic milks that do have very different processes, the way they handle their animals, and they seem to be much more ethical in the way the animals handled. Yes, the milk is more expensive, but it's milk.
Yes.
It's not laden with antibiotics and yeah.
Wow, it's so interesting. Like, you know, what is in our literally our livelihood of what we eat and drink, and I find it so fascinating.
And going back to the supermarket, I noticed the last few months, or actually I should say the last year, the supermarket has started putting packaged goods in that L shape around the supermarket.
Yes.
So I guess the advice that we suggest is look at the ingredients. Every single thing you look at, don't look at just how much sugar and fat it's got.
Yes.
Look at the actual contents. What is in that food? What are the ingredients? If there are ingredients that you don't understand, if this is additive, if there's a number like 283, 621, whatever, if there are things like vegetable oils and, you know, palm oils and anything that has trans fats, all packaged foods can have trans fats in them that can, they're poisons effectively for the body. Don't buy them, right? Yeah. Don't buy them. Find foods that if it's bread, look at the back. I did the exercise a few months ago when I looked at every single flat bread in the supermarket. And there's all these flat breads that say, you know, keto and, you know,
noticed that.
healthy and you know, I don't know, green and kale and whatever. You look at the back of it and you're horrified. Horrified.
I've started doing that as well. It's actually shocking what's on there, and it's marketed as something healthy and good for you, but meanwhile back at the ranch it's not that great at all.
I think that anything that says it's healthy and good for you, right, or added fiber, anything like that, or fat-free or sugar-free, just put it down, because you know, most likely it will have some horrendous thing in there that is terrible for you. So look at it. So there's only, I think I only found one brand of bread that actually had 3 ingredients. It was one of the black breads, and it was right at the bottom shelf,
as it would be,
not in view. And it had effectively, it was wheat, stone ground wheat or whatever, water, salt, and I think that was it.
Yeah,
because the flatbreads don't have yeast in them, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. That's how bread used to be.
It's almost like we're set up for failure from the get-go, because I mean, you know, if you don't have this education, like I mentioned before, you go into the supermarket and go, oh, the packaging is great, it says healthy, I'm doing the right thing. And then what happened with me is, well, you're sitting there thinking, why am I not losing this weight? Even though you might be gymming and exercising, but what you're actually putting in into your body is not really that good for you. And then it's a cycle, of course. I mean, it's so obvious, but one doesn't think about it. Whatever you eat, it affects your well-being, how you think, how you function on a daily basis. And I'm probably about a year in now into putting in the hard yards and honoring the program and you know, the lifestyle that you've introduced me to. And just in terms of you know, your brain power, I want to say it's impacted me massively. I don't get that brain fog. I don't feel so tired. And I'm pretty sure, like you were saying earlier, one actually starts to look a bit younger, which I'm really glad about. Thanks, Paloma.
You did the work yourself, but your outsides reflect your insides, right?
Yeah.
And you're going back to what you were saying about your fog. Effectively, our gut, and this is what very few people know, you have clusters of neurons in your gut.
Wow.
And up to 90% of the serotonin in your body is actually produced in your gut, right?
No.
So the gut microbiome is so important that there is, it's become mainstream.
Yes.
So doctors are now readily accepting that your gut can have major impacts on the way you think, on mental health, on even Alzheimer's, dementia, insulin resistance. So many papers are coming out linking particular types of gut bacteria to adverse effects in your body. There is a nerve called the vagus nerve. It goes from the brain and branches down like an upside down tree, mainly to the gut and the internal organs. And of course, interestingly, the signals from the vagus nerve from the gut to the brain are stronger. That's why when you eat something or have some alcohol, the next day you feel terrible.
Ah, right. Makes
Because
sense.
you're affecting the neurotransmitters in your gut effectively, and it's sending the signal of the serotonin production, the neurotransmitters sending the signal to the brain, and it creates a problem, a major problem. So the worse your gut bacterial health is, the worse you're going to be feeling. You'll be feeling depression, you'll be feeling anxiety, you have a lot of health issues, and you wouldn't even know, because they're lining the barrier, what they call leaky gut is actually 100% true. That barrier becomes compromised and toxin starts going in and affecting the gut, which then sends signals to the brain.
Yes.
You have this cascading effect and you get stressed, and the stress then does the same thing. It actually then creates more problems in your gut because it's this feedback loop. So we got, by stopping that, there are certain kind of and people take a lot of these probiotics, which most, unfortunately, commercial probiotics, most of them get destroyed in your gut. So the one we sent you, that's a very particular type. That's made with spores. So it's one of the only spore-based probiotics in the world with very specific types of bacteria.
Yes.
And those particular types of bacteria, there's 15 clinical trials on that particular product. So it's an incredible product. We've seen some amazing results with people they've had serious gut issues. So the fog definitely will disappear when you feel better.
Yeah, it's thank you so much for sending that to me, Paloma. I love all your products, and I wanted to actually ask you about that because your cacao shake is one of my favorites as well. Sorry, my dog is having a bark there.
No problem. That's good. We love animals.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have 3 chihuahuas and they love to have their say every now and then, but never mind. Please walk us through your products. I absolutely love the products that you offer. Your vitamin D. I know I had a blood test and I was asked, are you taking vitamin D because your levels are great? And I remember you saying a lot of the like the supplements that one gets at the chemist are quite watered down. They're mass produced. You're not actually, again, you think you're doing the right thing, but you're actually getting something that's being completely watered down. It's completely, defeating the purpose.
That's right. That's right. So that's an area of great interest to us, and one of the reasons we started making some of our own products, or trying to find the best products in the world, was because of that exact reason. So if you go into a supermarket and you pick up a particular product, let's say curcumin or vitamin D, or let's say fish oil. Fish oil is a big one. There is so many different types. There's so many different prices, and you have no idea, why is this one $50 and this one $150?
I had that experience.
So there are so many different things to look at. First of all, where does the fish come from? So is it deep sea caught fatty fish, or is it commercially produced fish that are in these ponds and they feed them pellets, like salmon, for example? 99%, if not more, of Australian salmon are farmed, and they dye the salmon a particular color to make it look pink. But those animals actually they're not pink, because
oh my goodness,
go through the ocean and get krill, and that's how they get their color, right? Whereas are mutants. They're so much bigger. They get fed either their own bodies that are dyed, or pellets of soy and wheat and and effectively commercially produced food. They're very, very stressed because they're in a confined space. Salmon are meant to be, moving around and eating all sorts of different organisms. So what you're getting, people think it's very healthy. Unfortunately, it's commercially produced mass product.
Yeah.
So then you've got other types of fish, and that's just salmon. So a lot of the fish that are in these fish oil tablets may come from fish that are produced in Vietnam, in China. And, in terms of chemicals, in terms of what the animal is fed, in terms of the types of fish that they are, omega-3, we want to get it from fatty fish, right? So where the fish comes from, how rancid is it? How quickly it was processed? What was the supply chain like?
The process.
The process like, and also more importantly, the EPA to the DHA ratio, because so the EPA is crucial for heart health, DHA for brain health. So when you look at these products and you actually find out that they don't specify where the fish comes from, what type of fish it is, how quickly it was processed, and the ratio of EPA to DHA, when you look at it, it's very, very, very low. So you may be paying $50 for something, but you're effectively getting very little value out of that.
Yeah.
You buy something you pay $150 for, it's probably ends up cost in terms of comparatively, it'll be half the price of the $50 one if you actually look at the content of the actual EPA to DHA and where that fish comes from.
Yeah.
So we have sources from Nordic Naturals, Norwegian company. It's from sardines and anchovies processed within 4 hours, and it's got the highest EPA to DHA ratio. So we actually get it imported to Australia for us, just that particular product. So we carry the highest content. So it's 875 to 1,125. So you only
I've got, Paloma?
The fish oil, the Nordic Naturals. It's Pro Omega 2000, it's called.
Yes.
So the same thing with vitamin D, where it comes from, how it's processed, how many IUs there are. That's a personal thing that is a person to person. Not everybody should be taking everything. So it has to be personalized and targeted. So that's another thing. Be very careful about the fad things like NMN and resveratrol and all these substances that are fad diets. Get the basics right. And take something that you need rather than topping things into your body that you don't need and actually may be detrimental for your health.
Yes. And Paloma, you guys also have some great partnerships. Did you want to walk us through that?
Yes, so we were one of the first companies to partner with Oura Rings. So we provide a discount code for our clients now. So if they want to purchase it, it's still one of the best sleep tracking apps. So it comes in various different colors, but effectively it's got 3 sensors in it, and it's continuously monitoring your pulse. And I don't know if you can see that.
It's very stylish as well.
It's made out of titanium. It's very, very light, and you can go into the water with it. Just don't go into the sauna because it degrades the battery.
Oh no!
And I've been doing that, so I've actually stuffed up my ring now. But, so that we've got Oura partnership. So we're very very excited because we love the Oura Ring device, and we recommend everyone to improve their sleep, which is absolutely instrumental. Without good sleep, you can have the best diet, the best exercise, best lifestyle. If you're not getting adequate sleep, all of that is thrown out the door. It's like a bucket with holes in it.
Yeah, it all works in harmony.
Water, it comes out. Sleep is a foundation. Good sleep is absolutely the foundation. So we work with our clients to improve their sleep. Some people think they sleep very well, but until they actually we can track it, you don't know how well you sleep. You don't know the component of deep sleep to REM sleep to light sleep, the hours, how rested you really are. All of those things should be based on a tracking device, and this seems to be the best one for sleep
as well. Paloma, I'm mindful of time. I think I could chat to you all day. Are you still up for time?
Yes, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I love our conversations. I always find them so interesting and just so educational. Thank you so much.
You're very
And
welcome.
my other question was, if our audience is wanting to connect with you or work with you, I know you have various programs that you offer in terms of helping people on their journey. Did you want to walk us through that, please?
Yes, of course. So you can start with, if you wanted to find out information, you can always write to us and we will provide you with further information. If you wanted to perhaps chat to us for a quick chat to see what's the right program for you, but everything is online. So the very first program, which is Inform Me, and that basically does your genetic test that we were talking about. It's powered by the AI. And we have a 1-hour consultation where we provide you with information on how to use the wheel, what to look out for, the pertinent things for your health. And then you can go off and look at that. And then we can send you a list of things that we feel you should do or need, for example. And that comes with a 95-question questionnaire where we find out all about your diet and lifestyle and supplements and medications. The second program has bloods as well as a medical doctor that oversees everything. And that is a much bigger program where we have very comprehensive blood works, which are not usually done. If you're an Australian citizen, we can provide Medicare rebate for the blood part anyway, but not the consult part. And then we collate the bloods, the genetics questionnaire, and your family history. And it's a very, very robust, incredible tool to be able to give you the best outcome to move forward with your health and well-being. And you can basically keep that and refer back to it for the rest of your life. And then the third one includes personalized supplements. We're also adding another 2 or 3 programs, which will include full body MRIs, CAT scans, and a number of different substances, IVs, etc. But they're not online yet. But they're I suppose much bigger programs that you need to spend about a week with us to be able to do those programs.
It's fantastic, Paloma. It really just, like I said, I mean, I can truly attest to this. It gives you a foundation where you actually know what works for you and what doesn't. And I first remember when Paul mentioned, or connected us, I thought, oh my gosh, okay, sure, fair enough. But it actually legit has changed my life, and it really, really works. For the first time, as I've said, like, I actually have the tools to live a healthy lifestyle, and you have that education that really helps you make those choices. And it's like you have a mindset shift as well. Like, once knowledge is key, right? So once you have that information, you become so much more conscious of what you do. Are you exercising? What you eat? What you don't eat? And it's really fascinating.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Tracy. You're a star client, so
thank you.
Because you actually implement things, and once when you're seeing results, you implement things and you continue with it. So we're really, really pleased about your progress. It's all you. We just gave you the information.
Thank you so much. Like I said, it's the first time in my life I've actually had the right information to actually make some key changes, which has been good.
Amazing. You absolutely look amazing. And
thank you.
You're always beautiful.
Thanks.
True, but like the transformation, and I can just feel the energy as well, and calmer as well from when we did it. Because of course, when you're in a chronic state of inflammation, you feel that anxiety, that you feel everything feels wrong because your body is constantly, sending out this inflammatory signal.
Yeah.
There's something going on. So once you put your body in a state of calm, and it's balanced and it's got the right nutrients and the right tools, you just feel calmer. And even for me, I have to say that I'm constantly improving my, I tinker with everything. So the latest thing.
Saying, yes, you trial everything yourself. Yeah.
Trial everything myself. So I'm on a number of different supplements and medications, which are meant to increase health span and lifespan. And my latest evidence-based interventions have been peptides.
Oh.
Yes, very, very excited. So there are peptides are effectively small chain amino acids that are effectively small proteins that the body produces. So body produces around 9,000 different types of peptides. Everything from your skin health to your hair to your estrogen, testosterone, repair, growth, hormones, everything. There's a peptide that the body produces, and there are some peptides that mimic it. So we're now working with a great compounding pharmacy, and there are 5 peptides that are sit on the Therapeutics Goods Administration site. They're scheduled for drug, and we have now doctors that can help patients for particular reasons to actually put them on peptides, and the difference is absolutely amazing. I have to say, I'm blown away. At the moment, I'm on BPC 157. And I've actually, on my LinkedIn profile, I've done an article on BPC 157. And wow, the difference in my training has been phenomenal. Absolutely.
I'll check it out. Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's lots of things. So I'm the guinea pig for everything.
I remember you saying you have a very very personal, very ethical approach as well, and you're very big on animal rights. You know, all those things that you shared earlier. It's actually quite horrifying that happens. And I'm sure if I had more exposure to it, I'd probably become fully plant-based, which I'm trying to work towards. But when you've been conditioned to eat meat and you're South African for 39 years, it's a bit hard to break that.
And we don't advocate. Look, it's my diet is very, very strict, and I have my own ethical reasons for doing that.
Yes.
But I, as a scientist, I also have to ensure that what we are providing information to people is evidence-based.
Yes.
In terms of evidence-based, not everybody thrives on a plant-based diet, but no one thrives on a meat diet, right? Nobody. There's no population on the planet is long living and they eat a huge amount of meat.
Yeah, because I think is it the carnivore diet?
The carnivore diet, unfortunately, there's absolutely no scientific backing or any scientific papers or any studies that have been emulated where the animals, you may lose weight in a short term, but in terms of inflammation and the markers in your body, there doesn't seem to be. I haven't really seen any papers that show that is a ideal diet. Having said that, there's the blue zoners around the world. There's 5 blue zones around the world. They all, apart from one, most of them consume a small amount of red meat for ceremonial purposes and for festivals. They're predominantly plants, which is what Michael Pollan says, but they do also add protein in terms of either seafood or some type of red meat. The Okinawans have some pork, again, for ceremonial purposes, a few times a year. In terms of Ikara in Greece, they have lamb, for example, or goat, again, in ceremonies, in terms of a fiesta. But the predominant part of their diet are plants, and plants are everything: grains, seeds, nuts, fruits, vegetables, because people think, oh my God, I can't eat salads.
Yeah. That's where my mind goes, salad straight away.
But almost everything we eat are plants. Apart from meat, dairy, eggs, what else is there that is animal? Everything else is, and if you want to consider honey, but effectively, apart from that, everything is plants, right? Yes. So don't be horrified by the word plant-based.
It's funny. Someone I know, they were dieting. They went straight to having salads. And I'm like, I'm so hungry. I'm like, because you're just eating like lettuce leaves, like nothing else. There's no substance. So it's so bizarre how our mind just goes automatically to salads.
So the salads that we advocate for people, we get them to get as many, try to get 30 different types of vegetables in there. So you take 5 or 6 different types of lettuce. You put, you can chop up some celery in there, some carrots, tomatoes, onions, herbs, nuts and seeds, You know, there's so many things. You can put some lemon juice in there. That's effectively lemon juice.
Yes.
Extra virgin olive oil. You put some olives in there. You can put some sun-dried tomatoes in there. You make this salad super hearty. You know, you make it delicious. You can put if you just in terms of vegetables, I try to go and get things that I've never tried before. Like every time I go to the supermarket, I pick something that I've never tried before, and then I try it and think, okay, that was good, or that wasn't good. So so salads shouldn't be boring and disgusting. There should be the center, you know, this delicious, yummy thing full of goodness that you just want to be eating, you know,
which they can be.
Like grains, you can put grains in there. You can put legumes. You can put lentils in there. I mean, chickpeas in there. You can make a hummus and then put some hummus on top, because that's effectively chickpeas, olive oil, water, and garlic, some lemon juice. Yeah.
No, it's a great idea. And Paloma, I always say to you that humanity needs the work that you're doing, because I think obesity is at an all-time high in terms of humanity. In terms of your vision and what's next, I know you spoke briefly about the peptide research that you're doing. Is there anything else coming up for you?
Yeah, so the peptides are very interesting, because Ozempic actually is a peptide, as well as insulin. It's a peptide, except the peptide, that particular peptide, there's a lot higher number of amino acid chains, so it's made biologically, whereas the peptides we're talking about are made synthetically, and they're under 50 amino acid chains. So peptides are a revolutionary substance that can change everything in your body. You can actually have peptides that mimic exercising, believe it or not.
Wow.
You can build muscle mass by effectively taking peptides. So there's a lot of room for innovation, and unfortunately peptides have been linked to footballers and performance enhancement, and they've been slapped on the hand for that. But I just think, why not optimize your body and performance enhance yourself with substances that you can and are natural? We're not talking about putting in horrible drugs into you, or
steroids or something like that.
Something awful. We're talking about things that the body naturally produces and that you get depleted in it. So so in terms of the overall picture, we're hoping that we can take this app and make it completely automated, so that there is no need for a consult. And that's the next part of our plan, to be able to then deploy it globally. And so people that have done things like 23andMe, Ancestry, or MyHeritage, they can upload the data. It's the same chip we use, the Illumina chip. They can just upload the data and get their results, and have it at a very cost-effective subscription model. Because once we automate it and we've got hundreds of thousands of clients, we can afford to sell it for a much, much lower price. At the moment, we're not even breaking even, because it's so expensive running our own servers, programming our own AI. We've got our own lab. It's extremely expensive to run. So we're hoping we can get it down to $200 a year as a subscription model for the app.
And it's great to be able to refer back to it as well. I mean, like I said before, with the incident I had, you refer back to mine. You were like, well, you ever thought about this? Or has your doctor done this? And I'm like, no. So it's really a powerful tool. Such a powerful tool.
Did you speak to your doctor about methylation and your
I did, so they recommended something, and then I think I touched base with you, and you recommended again one of your fabulous products that I've been taking. Because again, I mean, if you don't know what you don't know, right? You just trust the doctor and do what they say, but at the end of the day, it's not actually the best option for you. So
it's unfortunate that with the folic acid and the conversion, some people with a particular genotype, and so that will also help with reducing inflammation in your body, as well as homocysteine, which is a microinflammation.
Which I would have never known had I not worked with you. So thank you again, Paloma. Paloma, I got so excited with our chat. You started off with your personal journey in the beginning. Did you want to walk us through how using, I know you said you make yourself a guinea pig for everything that you do. How did these lifestyle changes, or these tools that you've taught myself, how did they help you with that journey of discovering you had a brain tumor?
Of course. So, so the first lot of radiation I had done caused significant brain damage to my frontal lobe, because it's on this side of my right side of my brain. So I had a major personality change, and I started getting depression that I never had before. So I went from a very happy, party girl to getting these bouts of depression where I'd be lying on the ground crying, sobbing for 3 days straight. So, and at the time I told my doctors, and they thought there was no evidence for it at the time, because it was fairly new. And especially in someone as young as me.
Yes.
So now they know, because about 5 years ago, the tumor came back. Of course, when they radiate, they can't radiate everything. And if you've got a healthy body, the tumor is part of you. That also grows, right? That's why cancer, unfortunately, in younger people seems to be a lot more dangerous, because your body is so healthy, it's continuously making cells and dividing and dividing and dividing. As you get older, it becomes a little bit more, it slows down a little bit. Even though incidence of cancers goes up, it seems to be not as lethal as if you have it as a young person. Some of them are, but most of them. So when it came back again, I had already implemented a lot of these lifestyle changes, but I really went hard on the changes. So I started the time restricted feeding about 5 years ago. And I started going on specific types of substances. I changed the way I exercise as well. I started taking rapamycin. Rapamycin is a very, very, actually, I started taking that about 2.5 years ago. I started taking metformin, DHEA, a number of different substances. And so when they did the radiation, I just got actually my results 2 days ago, and we've had significant shrinkage in the tumor. So the second lot of radiation shrunk it, but then I've got to have yearly MRI. So very good result. The doctor was very, very pleased.
Oh, that's great.
And I can't really say correlated back to whether it was the radiation, or of course the radiation definitely helped, or the fact that now my body is much more balanced and therefore can fight those things and better, or but I feel 100 million times better. I've got so much energy. In terms of my exercise, I track my performance. And by the way, I saw that you got the 100 burpee challenge.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Fantastic. That is amazing.
Thank you.
I was so excited, because I thought I was doing very well, doing 50 burpees.
That's still great.
Yeah. And then I thought, I'm going to do 100 burpees. So I'm going to challenge myself. And I did the 100 burpees, and I was
awesome.
doing them. Afterwards, I felt, because I really like burpees, but I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do that a few years ago, like just deciding like that, I'm going to do 100 burpees.
Oh, it's
like that. I can now kind of lift about 60 kilos, which I'm about 53 kilos myself. So that's quite a bit. I wouldn't have been able to do that even in my 30s.
Yeah.
In terms of my performance, running, energy levels, and in particular cognitive function. So I've definitely can see a major shift in my cognitive function. So I actually feel like I am smarter than I was before, which is incredibly weird, because you're meant to be cognitively declining. And I asked my doctor the other day, because when they do the MRI, you can see brain images. And as you know, as you age, your brain starts shrinking. And so there is a gap between your skull and your brain. And one of the theories for Alzheimer's or dementia is that when the brain starts moving and hitting things, you start getting mass calcification around those areas. And that's one of the reasons you get, for example, you're much more prone to dementia, vascular dementia, etc. So I looked at my brain and I asked him whether, apart from the tumor, are there any areas? And he looked at it and he said, that looks like probably a brain of a 35-year-old or 34-year-old in terms of no shrinkage, no white little dots around there that shows, calcification in the brain or brain damage of any sort. And that's I think, I was really excited about that. More important.
That's fantastic. Wow. Wonderful, wonderful news, Paloma. And before we log off, is there any final tips or final advice you'd like to share with our listeners?
There's so much to share, and I wish so much health, and through health comes happiness for people, and joy. Actually, more importantly, joy.
So true.
First and foremost is education. Educate yourself. Don't go on the internet and listen to YouTubers and TikTokers and so on. Look at doctors that are from places like Harvard or Stanford or Monash or Melbourne University, or some well-known university. When you are looking at these things, read ingredients on everything, including cosmetics. When they say active ingredients, click on the rest of it. Active ingredients may be all fantastic, but then when you look at the rest of it, which could be, another 50 chemicals that they've failed to put on there because they want to show you just the good ingredients. Check, there's a lot of natural products that you put on your skin can have adverse effect on everything, or shampoos, etc., because they're full of chemicals, even though they may say natural.
Yes.
So read the ingredients. For food, the same thing. Follow Michael Pollan's advice. Eat whole foods, mainly plants, not too much.
Yes.
That's a very good way of staying healthy, Tracy. Yeah.
100%. Well, I like I say, I can truly attest to everything that you've taught me. We'll be sure to pop all the links, every single link in the show notes as well. Paloma, thank you so much for your time. Absolute privilege to chat with you. And like I said, I could chat to you till the cows come home.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I really, really appreciate it. And it's such a joy always interacting with you. You're extremely lovely, joyful, beautiful, intelligent human being.
Thank you.
And we're very blessed to have someone like you have done our program and advocating our program. So we're also extremely grateful to you, and we're learning. I've learned a lot from you as well. So
thank you, Paloma. Thank you so much, and congrats on that burpee challenge. It's I mean, I couldn't walk the next day barely, but congrats. That was good on you as well.
That's fantastic. I was like, I want to do what Tracy does. I was really, really excited when I saw his certificate. I was like, 100 burpees. I'm going to 100 burpees.
It was actually quite funny because obviously the whole group started, and then it was just myself and another guy. And because I'm terribly competitive, I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I literally felt my limbs and everything go numb. And I was like, I am doing this, come hell or high water. And then, it was just like, I just went into a different mode. But no, I'm so pleased it inspired you.
It definitely inspired me, and I was so proud of you. I mean, if that means anything, but I was so proud of you.
Yes.
That's such a fantastic thing, and I love intelligent, competitive women. We try to really employ a lot of work with a lot of women. I find that women should be supporting women.
Yes, I agree.
And we should form stronger networks where we can advocate things, and because I think we have a more holistic view about things.
Yes.
So I think that's wonderful, and very lucky to have you as part of our kind of group, I guess. Because that's
likewise, Paloma.
It's part of our group, yeah.
Yeah, I always said to Paul, I'm so grateful that he connected me with you, and thank you so much for showing me a better way of how to actually live life better as well.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Paloma. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. Bye.
You too. Bye.